So the semi-finals of the Olympic Sevens are nearly here. South Africa taking on the French. This is going to be a hard-hitting affair. South Africa coming into this game as the underdog, although pulling off a great victory over New Zealand in the quarterfinals. Whereas for the French, they got off to a grand start up against Argentina. The game got closer as the match progressed, but they still made their way through. And Antoine Dupont, the real talking point for this French side. And in this preview, we will be looking through at the previous fixtures throughout the competition, the key players to watch out for, alongside a couple other stats that I have found about this matchup, and then at the end, a prediction of who we think will get themselves the win. But we will start with South Africa and their previous games. They were a part of Pool A alongside New Zealand, Ireland, and Japan. Now, the first match was up against the Irish. South Africa not quite firing the way that some did expect heading into this Olympics competition. They did lose that game 10-5. Their second game was up against New Zealand. They were also defeated by the Kiwis 17-5. Although, of course, when it came to the more important game, that is where the Blitzboks did get their redemption in their game up against Japan. They needed to win it by 21 to make their way through to the quarterfinals. They won it by 49-5. Now, with a win in that game, South Africa actually came into the quarterfinals as the 8th qualifier. And they were also the only side in those quarterfinals to have 2 losses. So when you talk about an underdog story, the Blitzboks have got the perfect one if they continue winning their games and become Olympic champions in the quarterfinals. They were able to beat New Zealand 14-7. Their defense in that game was absolutely phenomenal. There were a few nervous moments. One player in particular who I think South Africa really need to make sure plays well in this semi is Ryan Oosterhuizen. He's a bit of a hothead at the moment, and I'm a little bit worried that eventually he's going to cost them a game. He almost did up against New Zealand. Luckily, though, South Africa still strong. Luckily, South Africa, though, they were still well and truly the better side on the day, and they'll be looking forward to facing off with the hosts. And for France, they didn't quite start their Olympics campaign the way that they were after. They had a 12-all draw up against the USA, and that was a game that they were heavy favourites. They should have been able to win it, but just not quite able to get the job done. Up against Uruguay, it was close also, 19-12, the French getting themselves the win. And then up against Fiji, it was also 19-12, but this time in favour of the Fijians. Now, Fiji are on the other side of the draw. They will be taking on Australia in the semi-final, but there is a small chance that we could see that rematch take place as the final, maybe as a third-place playoff game. I should also mention that all of the sides who have made their way through to the semi-finals have a very good shot of at least getting some sort of medal. Only one of the 4 teams will be missing out. Then for the quarterfinal, in this one, France, they were able to win it 26-14. They had a 21-0 lead. Argentina started firing back, and then it was a last-minute try from Antoine Dupont that did give them that 12-point margin. But I did find it quite interesting looking through at when these two sides have played throughout the 2023-24 season. They've actually only faced each other twice. The first of which was way back in January, where South Africa were able to get themselves the 24-5 win. And then the game after that, it was actually in May. So it's been a good 3 months since these two sides have faced. But that game, it was separated by the classic South African margin, 1 point. 20-19. South Africa getting themselves the win. So of this recent circuit, South Africa are 2-0 up over the French. But the question is, will that home field advantage here for France be enough of a momentum shifter, as well as having Antoine Dupont? Is that going to be the difference for Les Bleus? But looking through at the key players for the South Africans, there are definitely 2 that come to mind straight away, one of which being Selvin Davids. In both of those previous fixtures that I just mentioned, he was able to score himself a try. In each of them, there is only one other man who was able to do just that as well, and that was Tristan Lades. His defence throughout this competition hasn't been the strongest, but one thing cannot be denied: the man is a try-scoring machine when he gets space, and him partnered with Selvin Davids is just a dream combination on attack for the Blitzboks here. Also, if we had to mention one more key player for the South Africans, I think it would be Shilton van Wyk. He's got pure pace as well, and South Africa, the benefit that they've got is that kicking behind. Every time that they have used it throughout the Olympics, it has at least looked like the opposition have a few concerns about how to defend it just because of the pure space you can have on a sevens field. And I do think that that is something that South Africa will look to use here up against the French. But the question is, will the French themselves try a similar tactic? Antoine Dupont, he did come off the bench in the last game rather than starting before he made his way onto the field. France already had themselves 3 tries. One of the main reasons for that, it was Grand Didier. He has been phenomenal throughout this competition, and he does have that pure pace that can match some of the blitzbox players alongside him. Of course, outside of Antoine Dupont as another key player for the French, I would probably have to say that Andy Timo, in terms of what he was able to do, the physicality, matching up with someone like a Zane Davids, like a Ryan Oosterhuizen, to try and get under his skin a little bit, which isn't too tough, as Oosterhuizen, like I mentioned, he's become a bit of a penalty magnet lately for the South Africans. Every breakdown he goes into, you look at the referee and you wait for him to blow that whistle, but every once in a while he will get it right, and that is the benefit that he does bring to the side. But it's just whether or not the penalty count is going to be too high in this game, and will that be the advantage that the French need to get themselves a win in this semi-final. No matter what, it's going to be an awesome game, but if we had to give a prediction, South Africa come in as underdogs, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like, yes, they lost their first 2 games in this Olympic Sevens competition, and yes, France are at home, and we'll have 69,000 or so French supporters getting behind them on their home turf. But South Africa have shown that even if you start off a competition with a couple losses, you can still go on and win the whole thing. They knocked out New Zealand, a side that a lot of people felt were destined to get onto that podium once again. They were able to take down a Japanese side by the largest margin of any of the sides in their pool. And I just feel like they have got better and better as the competition has progressed. Now, something that we should mention, though, is the fact that these games are not taking place back-to-back after the quarterfinals. We have had an extra 24 hours in between, which a lot of these guys aren't used to. So that's where I wonder whether or not that experience that some of the South African players have got could actually heavily benefit them heading into this semi-final. But for me, score prediction, the last time these two sides were only separated by 1 point, I honestly feel like maybe it won't be 1, but I think it will be less than 5. But I'm going to say South Africa to win this game 26 points to 21. I see it being a high-scoring one. Could go the other way. Maybe both sides play quite a conservative game, but I don't think that actually benefits either of them. If it was to benefit one, would probably benefit France more. If South Africa aren't willing to go for their usual strong attack, throwing everything at the opposition, because when they're on song, they're a very hard side to stop. But do let me know your score predictions in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. This game, it is going to be kicking off at 1:30 a.m. New Zealand time, or that is 3:30 p.m. for you guys in South Africa. It's going to be an outstanding contest. Whoever wins this will face the winner of Fiji versus Australia, which has taken place very closely following this semi-final. But thank you all very much for tuning in. Do let me know your key players as well in the comments. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you all for the next one.